I'd like to pose a question to you. Who is an addict? An addict is a man or a woman who is in the grip of a persistent, progressive, and fatal illness whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, or death. It is, like I say, both progressive and fatal. Uh, but there is hope. Uh, that that people have been known to recover from addiction. Many of them say that they have recovery, but they're not recovered. I've heard it said that healing is different than being cured. If you're healing through getting to know yourself better and being more authentic because of to cope with an illness, then you're in recovery. So why would anyone want to have to ask that question, who is an addict? Well, do we have a choice whether we use drugs or not? Some people believe that addiction isn't a choice, that there is more at play in influencing our decision-making process than just our minds. There's our environment and the people around us. But I've also heard it say that to take drugs is a choice. You can choose to say yes or no. You can choose to get high or say no thank you. There are consequences for doing drugs, but there are benefits, otherwise people wouldn't do them. There's hard drugs and soft drugs. There's the mental health and addiction systems. For people who have been to prisons, hospitals, and rehab centers. So rehabilitation is available to people who apply to go to a treatment center or a rehab facility. Addiction has three main components. There's a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual self-centeredness. When that reflex to use drugs hits you, you find yourself saying things you feel ashamed of. You may selfishly ask for more because your disease has taken over. But if you're like me, you can catch yourself doing that and recognize the behavior and think of the opposite of that, which would be humility. Different drugs have different severities of how they affect your addiction. Marijuana use may cause anxiety from abstaining from marijuana use for various periods of time. I find going a week or two or a week and a half, once I get to day 10, sometimes I'm still trying to stay clean, but my mind is telling me it wants to get high. It wants to pick up and get a drug. Anxiety. I find sometimes my anxiety increases about an hour or two after I get high, but it helps me relax in the immediate present moment. Call that short-term gain and long-term pain for long-term, short-term gain for long-term pain. But, so, my health got worse over the years. There was a time when I was having muscle tremors and a limp when I was walking. My health was really that bad when I used to drink alcohol. And I mixed that with marijuana, and then my body would start jerking, and I'd be abnormal and strange. But that would strike me, and eventually it would pass, and I'd be able to return to normal after durations of acting bizarre and strange. So the question I wonder is, why do we identify as addicts if our addiction is marijuana or alcohol, or because the disease of addiction affects us all the same, all as addicts, and some drugs are more powerful than other drugs and are more severe, right? But no matter which drug you take, you still have the same disease of addiction. So the real lesson is people who are taking fentanyl, wearing a fentanyl patch, are putting their life in danger. It's a very bad lifestyle choice to choose to take fentanyl. But I don't think I could find Jib around Ottawa. Things have changed. The supply is probably different. When I did Jib, that was like 8 years ago. the scenes change. The hard drug users, the homeless people, they're addicted to fentanyl and xylazine, which can cause an overdose and death. When naloxone is administered, the person has a near-death experience and comes back and is able to survive. But I've said it, and I've said time again, and it's a sponsor who told me this. It doesn't matter what substance you take. You're taking the substance because you want to change the way you feel. And I remember how relaxed and content and crazy and I was when I smoked Jib, how much I enjoyed it. But it kept making me want more and more and more. It kept making me want more and more and more, and it kept satisfying me at the same time. It was a really strange drug. That leads to another part of this subject is the consequences of doing that drug on the physical health is sometimes people get a skin disease from doing too much meth or crack maybe too, I think. That can be very hard to cure. People sometimes lose their limbs. It's so it may seem like well, that's a reason for gratitude, knowing that I'm not addicted to xylazine and fentanyl, but my crazy addict mind makes me think that's a good idea. That's the disease causes me to think insane thoughts, and I need to do things to expand my spiritual life. And be willing to do what I need to do to move towards being restored to sanity. I know there's powers greater than myself. A group of people can be a power greater than myself, or a belief in a higher power. Could be a group, or it could be God, a God of my understanding. I'm told that once I accept that I'm not God, then That's how to become more humble. So we talked about who is an addict. Now the question I'd like to ask is what can I do about it? I can work the steps of a 12-step program. Once you get to the part where you're able to do a fearless and thorough moral inventory on yourself, you are a person coming from a situation where you feel like you lacked control, like it seemed like all these things had power over you instead of you having control of your life. You may have been making your own choices, but you didn't feel in control. You felt like the people around you and the environment you were in were keeping you down and trying to mislead you. But we're able to take back some control through honestly and thoroughly and fearlessly looking at our past. We asked, where was I selfish? Where was I resentful? Where did I indulge in self-pity? Where was I self-seeking? Where was I dishonest? Where was I betrayed? Where did I feel hopeless? How was I confused? Why did I feel like giving up? So to sum it up, what was I afraid of, and who did I resent? Why did I resent them? What was my part in it? Did I do something to hurt that person that I felt hurt me? Do I owe an amends? Or should I just try and stay away from that person? Here we stop again and check in with our higher power. We ask God to direct our thinking. To help us decipher true from false, right from wrong. Have I been fearless and thorough and honest? Well, that part sounds kind of negative. Part about resentments and self-pity. Instead of self-pity, there's positive as well as the negative. But once we are humble enough to admit our negative character traits, which are called character defects or shortcomings, then we can sometimes feel overwhelmed and utterly depressed. But the next part of it is we make a list, two lists, one of our assets and things that are going good for us, we're doing well, and second one for our liabilities. And our liabilities are all those things we named before. We're not left alone at our own devices to figure it all out by ourselves. We're given books and meetings and people to listen to. We're introduced to some spiritual principles. I need to begin to ask myself what I value more often. What do I value? All those things that I want to be accountable to. All those people I want to be accountable to. All those things I want to be accountable for. The people at my home group, my family, the people I talk to on the phone. So why are we here? We came here because we were sick people. We suffered from an illness that there's no known cure, but it can, however, be arrested and recovery is then possible. Try not to be too hard on yourself. Once you start really getting it, you may start feeling some shame and some remorse from looking at the negative side of our inventory. We realize how we were sick people became grateful that it's a illness, not a moral deficiency, but it's a demoralizing condition. We made worse choices. We found it harder to be honest and open-minded and willing. We needed a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity. But first we had to admit that we had a problem. We had to admit that the problem was out of the control. We had to admit we were losing in order to win. So when you got some things on paper, then you're starting to see how things are going wrong in your life and why, hey? When I was at Victoria House, I managed to stay clean for 90 days. But I was a sick person. I wasn't well. I may not have been totally insane. I had been restored to sanity, I think. But I talked a lot about the importance of having a good attitude, but I secretly harbored a bad attitude. I accepted that I had to stay off of drugs in order for the discussion to not be about me finding new housing. I accepted that, but I didn't like that. And I felt resentful that I wasn't allowed to smoke pot like the other people were. I hadn't fully surrendered to my higher power. I just thought I had. What was keeping me clean was I resented the people that I used to use with. So resentment and fear of losing my housing was keeping me clean. But I didn't want to be clean. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to party like the other people. I also learned that drinking led me to dangerous situations that had gotten worse over the years. I accepted that and didn't drink. I felt like the powers that be, the man or whatever you want to call it, had taken away my privacy, that someone was always listening. social conditioning. So, why would anyone want to identify as an addict once they know what a fentanyl user goes through? And I think a non-fentanyl user has the same disease as a fentanyl user, right? If they're an addict. And why are they an addict? Because they have the disease of addiction. They can't control how much they take once they've started. And they have trouble to stop using. They have trouble, they can't control how much they take. And they have trouble stopping using once they've started. So there's plenty of things that people get addicted to. There's the first one for me was cigarettes. So addiction is a dynamic force to be engaged with. But knowing how fatal it is makes it likely that it's a spiritual sickness. Addiction is a spiritual sickness. Why would I say it's a spiritual sickness? Because I think it because it's, to me, it's like a battle that has to be feared. And it's an evil force that has to be feared and battled with. This is where it comes to psychology or philosophy. Why would someone who knows that they lose when they use drugs and have lost many things in their life because of their use of drugs and their addiction, that wanting to get high would seem like a good idea? Because I like the way I feel when I do my drug of choice. It helps me relax. And it does a whole bunch of other things too, which It's because there are many drugs that aren't fentanyl, that some of them are beneficial uh, uh, medicine that gets prescribed by a doctor and comes from the pharmacy. Those are non-illegal drugs. What some people find is the doctor prescribes them so much illegal drugs like I'm on olanzapine and lorazepam, sometimes called Ativan, as well as several other ones. But I've heard people use that as an excuse to take an illegal drug. Like fentanyl and xylazine. So, like many other things, there's a price that has to be paid. A leveling off of the ego. When we allow ourselves to become vulnerable enough to be humiliated, we start to feel again. Pride and ego are dangerous for us. It's good to be proud of your achievements, but pride, it can be being stubborn and not wanting to change. And getting too much into the ego, being too egotistical, is thinking you're better than other people, or self-centered, always talking about yourself, but hardly ever listening or taking interest in the stories of the people around you. Some people, like, they'll just keep on talking about themselves when they're with you, and they won't even ask about you. Or they'll answer the phone and talk to you for a few minutes, but they're not around for you in your life and in other ways that you need them to be. Those are the kinds of people that you might want to stop talking to. I don't mind someone who just talks on the phone for a few minutes and I don't see in other places much anymore. But that's because we live in different cities now. Well, I think I've got some real good content in here. I hope you found this vlog today both informative and entertaining. Bye for now, and see you in the next video.